morning. The USAID is the U.S. Agency for International Development, and because I'm a commissioned Foreign Service Officer for USAID, that means I help manage the U.S.'s foreign assistance programs. Since I've served in every geographic region, I'm currently now covering West Africa, which is comprised of 21 countries, just to tell you what I do. So it really is my profound pleasure to be back to Guilford, and I'm almost embarrassed to say I've been here one other time since I graduated from Guilford. I graduated in '83, and while I was at Guilford, I applied to the Peace Corps, and I left in 1983. The same year I left Guilford, I joined the Peace Corps and served in Liberia. And while I was there, I applied to an internship with USAID. So it all started here, and it's continued. So 25 years into my career, I continue to do the same thing, except in different countries. Every 3 to 4 years, I move. Excuse me. So I wanted to give a special appreciation to President Fernandez, Carrie Jo Manson, and a special appreciation to my sister and best friend, Jackie Waters Birch, who is also a Guilford alumni. She's the one who literally drugged me to Guilford. You're coming to Guilford College. So she's why I'm here, and she really is my best friend. We talk at least 2 times a day, even though we live in different places. So thank you, everyone. It's very inspiring to be here today, and I thank you again for allowing me to share a bit of myself about me for the next few minutes. 2 days ago, I had a splendid pleasure of meeting the head of NASA and some astronauts while having live feeds from the International Space Station. The NASA head, Charlie Bolden, he talked about his professional accomplishments and how he realized his dream to become an astronaut. He also shared how his literal view of the world and humanity changed when he saw the planet Earth from space. It was amazing to see these pictures and so inspiring. Excuse me. I entitled my talk today, Begonias in the Desert. Bloom where you're planted, for a reason. Like Mr. Bolden, my life started with big dreams, along with resounding support and grand expectations from my parents. I haven't yet traveled to space. However, 10 years ago, when I landed in the middle of the Kalahari Desert in Gaborone, Botswana, I had the amazing feeling that indeed I was on another planet, and for all positive reasons. So please, if you would, just relax, close your eyes, and imagine that you're in a desert. Just close your eyes for just a moment. And now look around that desert, any desert, and just tell me what you see. And if a few of you can just call out some of the images that you imagine when you're in a desert, what comes to mind?
Prickly pear cactus.
Again?
Prickly pear cactus.
Prickly pear cactus? What?
I can feel the blazing heat.
The blazing heat?
The blazing heat. Nothing but sand.
Mm-hmm.
No water, no oasis in sight. I can feel my tongue being parched.
Obviously, yeah. So you have a great imagination. Great.
Pardon me, I'm very visual.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Because that really explains why I chose this topic. I honestly had the same idea that the desert had nothing in it to offer, that it was just this vast, dry place. And I had read about the Kalahari, but I had no idea that when we landed, there would be these flowers blooming everywhere. And I felt that was kind of what my life was like. When Carrie Jo called me, she said, pick a topic. We want you to talk about yourself. And I felt that that's my life. I'm that flower that bloomed in the desert. I'm that one who did things in unexpected ways in unexpected places. So that's why. So I want to tell you a bit about myself and my life journey. Through my work I've been lucky enough to explore many parts of the world, meet and work with all sorts of wonderful people, while striving to do, as my parents told me, to always do my best and to exceed expectations, particularly from people who expected nothing from me. I grew up in a very small rural town in South Florida in the 1960s, during a period of profound turmoil and change in our nation, not just in the South. I dare say that many in my community didn't expect much from folks like me on our side of the railroad tracks. However, my mother, a prolific reader, she made sure that her children were familiar with our heritage and with the many change agents in our time. The likes of Julian Bond, Jesse Owens, Alberta Hunter, Althea Gibson, Marian Anderson, Paul Robeson, Mary McLeod Bethune, Richard Allen, and many others, they became our heroes. In 1964, my parents forbid me and my siblings from entering what was then a segregated school system. Back then, there wasn't any homeschooling. It was called truancy. It really was. My parents were ridiculed, they were intimidated, even threatened to be jailed from keeping us, for teaching us at home. They resisted the inevitable tide, those who ridiculed us, my parents, and this change occurred across the country, not just in the South. Around that same time, a group of Quakers, young Quakers, came to our town, and they were connected with the American Friends Service Committee. And they wanted to help us push along this movement through peaceful yet persistent community activism and Black empowerment in the South. Around that same time, a tall, very slim, bearded young man came to meet with my parents. And he was a young Quaker named Jim Upchurch, who's also a Guilford alumni. And by the way, my mother just told me last night she and Jim talked on yesterday. So years later, but we still have remained in touch. Jim said he wanted to help our town, first through improved housing, and then to provide basic services to the many poor families in my town. Jim still remains an inspiration to me, and we still have constant contact with his family. Over time, and with tremendous challenges, the people stood together, and the segregated school system did collapse, one by one. Jackie and I are the product of many struggles and many prayers. Over the years, I've continued to remain close with Jim and his family. And in the 70s, when Jim left Florida, he moved to Gaborone, Botswana, to continue his work as an urban planner in a country that had just recently gained independence and established itself as a new nation. Botswana became independent in 1967 and had needed everything, but it did have diamonds, so it had a lot going for it. And it negotiated a great deal with De Beers, by the way. We exchanged letters, and Jim sent then, when I was a little kid, he would send pictures, and he would write to me. And I was so impressed that this grown man would write to this little kid and share his stories and talk to me and give me advice. And he has continued to do that. I didn't realize that years later, in 2004, my husband Eric and our 4-year-old son, we moved to Botswana to live and work. And to my surprise, we did indeed find begonias and other flowers and birds and so much color in the middle of this huge desert. And mind you that the capital of Botswana, Gaborone, gets its water from the mountains, from Angola, so it's traveling through about 4,000 kilometers of desert. And if they don't get rain, they don't have water. So how can these flowers bloom in the desert? And so it was just amazing. It was an epiphany for me. And I believe, as I started off by saying, that I think, much like that desert, I too am a begonia that bloomed. The Quaker tradition of quiet and meaningful service has certainly influenced my life and my career choices, and they continue to do so. And I don't believe it's a coincidence that when I was in the Peace Corps, actually on my way to the Peace Corps, I stopped in the Gambia, Banjul. It's a country in the middle of Senegal. It actually divides Senegal, English speaking. I met a family in the airport, and we started talking. And that was in 1983, the same year I graduated. And I remain in contact with that family. And the husband, Richard Edwards, also a Quaker, is my inspiration. He's the one who, Richard, encouraged me and supported me to join USAID. So as I reflect on my life and life choices, there aren't any coincidences. And I've been very blessed and very fortunate to always have people in my life wherever I've traveled. I trust that through my life and my life contributions that I've been able to extinguish stereotypes, thanks for that word, Jackie, build bridges, and common understanding in my own country as well as in others, and that I've made a difference in some small way. So I'll begin as I started. Life is an amazing adventure. Bloom where you're planted. Thank you so much for your time.